Hey guys, my name is Alex. So my family is planning this really cool trip to Italy, kind of a once-in-a-lifetime type of trip to 3 different cities in northern Italy, but there's kind of a personal tie, and I want to document this for my own records, but also for my family to have something to look back on in a few years, in a few weeks, once our trip is over. This trip is kind of, like I said, more personal than just going to see all the fun tourist areas, you know, going to see Rome, going to see Pisa, going to see Milan. So for years, my family's been talking about going on a trip like this. We've been bugging my mom, my aunts on that side of the family to go on a trip for years. Let's do Italy, let's go. We're not getting any younger. Well, finally we are doing it. We are going to Milan, Venice, and Florence for a 10-day trip of a lifetime getaway, right? I also grew up knowing I had some Italian heritage in the back of my, ancestral past type of stuff. My grandfather, my mother's dad, his family is from Italy. The last name was Bodoli, so it kind of makes sense. You kind of grew up Italian. You grew up loud, aggressive. You sort of like pasta. It's an Americanized version of you think you're Italian, right? Well, I mean, this trip has transpired to be more than just a trip, as I said. We are now basically proving that we are pretty much Italian, at least the one side of my family is. Like I said, my mom's last name was Bodoli, B-I-D-O-L-I. So I'm gonna actually break down today how we found actual relatives with our last name still over in Italy who are actually looking for us at the same time. They actually exist, and they were looking for us before we were looking for them. We just could not connect. And I'm hoping in a few weeks I can have an update for you once we meet these folks and kind of talk and catch up in as many words as we can. So let me break it down for you. So, like I said, this trip is more than just, drinking and eating our way through Italy. There's a personal tie to all of this. So how it started was we're all on board, we all saved our money, we planned all this stuff. I told my dad about it. My dad is not of Italian descent. He is Swedish and, a couple other things. So I tell him, hey, we're going to Italy these days, this month. Well, my dad is really into ancestry stuff, my heritage things, ancestry.com, all of that. And he tells me, he's like, that reminds me, I think there was a guy years ago who tried to connect with me on Facebook saying he had information about your mother's family. And I'm thinking, like, what does that mean? Like, who is this guy? Who is he working by himself? Was he hired by somebody? He's based in Canada, but a woman in Italy actually hired him to do some family research and digging up for him or for her. And he spent months and years, I guess, looking for people and tying things together. He has a huge interest in genealogy and history and all that kind of stuff. He reaches out to my dad because they had common family trees or common names, I guess, in their respective accounts online on these ancestry sites. So he reaches out a couple years ago and says, hey, I think I've got some information for you that might be of interest. I think it concerns your ex-wife and her kids or your kids. And my dad never really did much with it, kind of just thinking, thanks so much for the connection, add it to my family tree and go on with my day. What else am I supposed to do with this, right? I'm never going to Italy. Well, now that we're going to Italy, he tells me this and I think, well, maybe I'll friend the guy on Facebook. So I friend him, we get to talking. He likes to talk a lot, which is really cool because he's got so much information. He basically tells me that he's been working for years on compiling the Bodoli family history and genealogy of this one certain town in this one certain region of Italy. Well, let me backtrack real quick. My grandfather, Lou Bodoli, Luigi is what they called him, he always talked about, whenever my mom was growing up with my aunts and everyone, her sisters, he always talked about how, the family's from this place, Fruit of the Loom was what he called it. Fruit of the Loom, obviously is not the name of the Italian place where his dad and everyone were from. So I'm like, Friuli. Friuli is pretty close to that. Well, this guy reveals all this information about the Bodolis from the Friuli region of northern Italy. It's about 90 miles, give or take, northeast of Venice. So I'm like, all right, maybe we're onto something here. So this guy starts sharing information and pictures and family trees of my name and my picture. It was unreal. This guy had pictures of me that I had never really seen. He had information about, my dad and mom, my mom's dad, my grandfather's dad, who was my great-grandfather. So I'm like, this is just way too weird. This is way too weird. I don't like it. It's odd. What do I do with it? I eventually figure out this guy is legit. He did know what he was talking about. And I'm like, well, who are you working for? Why are you compiling all of this? Your last name is not Bodoli. What is going on here? Well, this guy tells me that this woman, Emanuela Fusi, F-U-S-I, is the one that he's working for or was working for and who he compiled all this information for. So I'm like, what what is going on? Why would she be looking for this? Her last name is not the same as ours. Well, come to find out that she has all the same relatives we do. And the easiest way to describe our relationship is that my great-grandfather and her great-grandfather were brothers. So it's not that far removed. Our both respective great-grandfathers were brothers, born in the 1880s in Moduno, Italy, which is in the Friuli region of northern Italy. How freaking crazy is this? So once I realized, okay, this guy's legit, this woman's claims are legit, she kind of knows the right names and people and dates and stuff, I'm like, let me friend her. Is she on Facebook? Well, welcome to the 21st century. It's easier than ever to get a hold of somebody. She was on Facebook. I friended her, and almost immediately she and I started chatting about, why are you friending me? And then she figured out, oh, I think I know why. I described some stuff via Google Translate. Thank you so much. I only know grazie. I don't know much more than that. So Google Translate was a big help there. And she basically gives me the lowdown on that. She's been looking for family back in America for years because she knew from her ancestors that people had left. Some of the brothers stayed. Some of the brothers came to America. Her great-grandfather, Santi Bedoli, born in 1882, I believe, here in this picture, they think he's the one sitting down. My great-grandfather, Leonardo, is the one in the foreground. We know actually that Leonardo, came to America and had my grandfather, who had my mother, who had me, while Santi stayed back in Italy. They did not come. So she has been trying to find the American counterparts for years and never could. We get to chatting. I finally understand everything. It makes sense to me. And as my family and I are planning this trip to Italy, I'm like, I should probably tell them. I mean, we're going to be over in Italy. Should we connect with her? What's going on? We got to figure out a way to touch base and meet this woman who we are blood related to, who we never knew existed until, 5 minutes ago. But I'm like, also, my family might be a little bit apprehensive and hesitant. What do I do with this? They might think it's sketchy and shady. I don't know what to do. So during one of our check-ins, I tell them all about this woman who I found. And I'm like, just go check her out. It's legit to me. It seems legit to me. And so when my mom and my aunt both go to their respective Facebook accounts to look her up, they already have messages from her in their Facebook Messenger app, which means this woman found them, messaged them, and neither of them responded. I don't know if they missed it. They thought it was like some scam or something. Years ago, this woman reached out. After she had this information that this guy compiled for her, she reached out to say, hey, we're family, we're relatives. I'm over in Italy, you're over in America. We've never met or known about each other, and no one did anything about it. So I'm sure she was thinking, what the heck is going on with those Americans over there? They don't respond to anything. So years ago, she did this and nothing ever happened from it. Well, I tell my family, add her back and respond to her messages and say that you understand it now and that it's not fake, that you think it's real. Within hours, she's also sharing pictures and family trees of people and names that we know and we recognize. And there's really only one way that she would legitimately have this, is if she is legitimate herself, right? Why would you have them? We're not celebrities. What else would you need these things for, right? Turns out she lives in Milan, which is where our first stop is, but she's telling us all about where to go back in the hometown where everyone was born. Santi and Leonardo were born back in the 1880s in Moduno, Italy, in what was then probably a kind of a shack kind of town. It kind of still looks that way to this day. It's very, very, very rural and just classic, I think, Italian countryside. She tells us, she's been looking for folks for a long time. Her and her brother and her other siblings are all in Milan and across the northern part of Italy. So, but the weird thing is, Emanuela is in her 60s and I'm in my 30s. But on our respective family trees, we are at the same level. Her family, starting with Santi as the starting point, Santi had kids faster and earlier than my section of the family tree did. So she is 60-something, I'm 30-something, we're about 30 years apart, but we are the same level. We're third cousins. We're all cousins to a degree. My mom and my aunt obviously a little bit closer. So once we find out that, these family trees line up, we come from the same people, all the names are the same, it feels like a movie script. It feels like we're in a Hallmark movie and it's just too good to be true. It makes no sense. Who does this this happened to. It's been such a pleasure and a really, really cool experience over the last 6 months since we booked this trip, getting to know her through messages and on Facebook. She's given us great ideas of where to go when we go to Meduno and try to track down where the family began. It's just the brilliance of social media that brought all of this together and of 21st century technology. Because I mean, you couldn't do this 50 years ago. You just sent letters and hoped someone found out and found the person you were looking for. It's really been an amazing experience finding out we've got relatives and family back over in Italy who share the family name, and we can prove it, which is even really, really more cool than that, because sometimes you kind of like maybe, we're gonna fudge the numbers and the names to make it feel like we've got something going on. No, we really do have something going on. We've got family back in Italy we never knew about. But what I really love about it for my mother and my aunt and their other sister, the third sister, she's not coming on the trip with us, but for the three sisters to really kind of feel a personal connection to the homeland that they don't really know at all. Their dad was born here, my grandfather was born here in America, and maybe spoke broken Italian to his dad or something like that. But my great-grandfather was born in Italy and moved over here at some young age and established himself in America, and did so without any knowledge of English or American Western culture. It's just incredible what these folks did hundreds of years ago, and we're doing it today with the help of technology and social media and apps and translation services, and it's still going to be a little bit tough and overwhelming, and there's going to be some hesitancy involved. I can only imagine what they felt like back in the 1880s or 1890s whenever this all happened. It's just unreal to think about, and we're able to prove it. So I'm really hoping after we go there in the middle of June to the end of June, once our trip is over, to have some really, really cool updates for you, some pictures obviously of all of us with our newfound family, our newfound cousin. It will certainly be a trip of a lifetime. I hope you stay tuned to see what happens next. I'm so excited to do this for my family and for my own kind of records and kind of prove things in 20 years when I forget the details of it. So stay tuned, and we'll see you after Italy.